Consider this. When have your worries ever added a single hour to your life? When has an anxious heart ever produced wisdom? On the contrary, worry clouds judgment, distorts reality, and draws our gaze away from the very source of peace. It is like a man so fixated on the storm clouds above that he fails to see the lamp at his feet, guiding his path. We often imagine that control is within our grasp. If only we strategize well enough, anticipate every difficulty, and arm ourselves against every possible misfortune, we will be safe. But this is an illusion. No man, however mighty, can dictate the course of time. The future is beyond our reach, yet we exhaust ourselves trying to wrestle with it. There is a better way, one that does not lead to exhaustion, but to peace. It is the act of surrender, not to fate, but to one who holds all things in his hands. To give our worries to God is not to neglect responsibility, but to place our trust in a wisdom greater than our own. It is to acknowledge that we are not sovereign over the universe, and that this, far from being a terror, is a comfort. Faith, you see, is not blind submission to uncertainty. It is the assurance that even when we do not see the road ahead, the one who leads us does. It is a refusal to be ruled by fear because we trust the one who rules all. This kind of trust does not make a man idle, but rather emboldens him. A mind unburdened by worry is a mind ready to act, to love, to serve, and to live fully. Imagine, if you will, a traveler burdened by a heavy pack. He stumbles, wearies, and loses his way, all because he refuses to let go of his load. But when he finally lays it down, he is free. His steps quicken, his strength returns, and he can finally see the beauty of the road ahead. Control is one of the great deceits of human nature. It is a mirage in the desert of uncertainty, always promising peace yet never delivering it. From the moment we become aware of the world's unpredictability, we seek to manage, plan, and contain every aspect of our lives, believing that if we are meticulous enough, we can safeguard ourselves from all harm. The mind convinces itself that if we hold tightly to every detail, if we anticipate every possible misfortune, we can somehow wrestle order out of chaos. But this belief, though deeply ingrained, is a falsehood that leads only to exhaustion and despair. At the heart of worry lies a profound misunderstanding, the assumption that our anxieties serve a purpose. We tell ourselves that if we think long enough, if we analyze every angle, we can prevent disaster. But worry does not prevent misfortune. It merely robs us of peace in the present. A man who spends his days fearing the storm does not stop the clouds from forming. He only ensures that he never enjoys the sunlight. The mind becomes so entangled in hypothetical outcomes that it loses its grip on reality, living in imagined troubles rather than in the actual moment at hand. Many people deceive themselves into believing that worry is a sign of responsibility. They confuse vigilance with anxiety, thinking that to let go of their worries is to neglect their duties. But responsibility is not the same as fear. A responsible person prepares wisely, takes necessary action, and then releases the outcome. A worrier, on the other hand, is never at rest. He prepares, yes, but then he frets. He plays scenarios over and over in his mind, as though this mental rehearsal might grant him control over events that are, in truth, beyond his reach. Consider the farmer who plants his crops. He plows the field, sows the seed, waters the earth, and removes the weeds. But he does not command the rain. He does not summon the sun, nor does he dictate the changing seasons. If he were to spend his nights agonizing over the weather, he would accomplish nothing but his own torment. The wise farmer does what is within his power and trusts that the rest is not his to command. It is not just the large concerns of life that reveal this illusion of control, but also the small daily anxieties that consume us. We worry about what others think of us, as if our reputation were an object we could sculpt with our own hands. We agonize over the future, as though our minds were capable of predicting every twist and turn. We replay past mistakes, believing that by mentally reliving them, we can somehow undo what has already been written in the history of our lives. In all these things, we exert energy in vain, for none of them are truly within our grasp. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of this illusion is that it blinds us to the greater reality, that we were never meant to carry the weight of the world. Our minds were not designed to bear the burdens of omniscience, and yet we attempt to do so, struggling under a load far too great for human strength. There is a reason why peace so often eludes those who try to control every detail of life. It is because peace is found not in control, but in surrender. To surrender is not to abandon wisdom or action, but to release the false belief that our striving can dictate the course of existence. It is to accept that we are finite, that we do not hold the threads of time in our hands, and that this is not a failure, but a mercy. When we relinquish the illusion of control, we are not left powerless, we are freed. Freed from the endless mental toil, from the weariness of constant striving, and from the fear that if we loosen our grip, all will be lost. In truth, it is not our tight grasp that sustains the world. The world continues to turn, the seasons continue to change, and life unfolds, not because of our anxious efforts, but despite them. The more we attempt to manipulate what is beyond us, the more we entangle ourselves in frustration and fear. But when we step back, when we acknowledge that not all things are ours to command, we begin to taste the freedom that comes with trust. Thus, the illusion of control is not just a misunderstanding, it is a thief. It steals joy from the present, peace from the heart, and clarity from the mind. It convinces us that we must hold on tightly when, in truth, we were always meant to let go. Surrender is often mistaken for defeat, as though to let go were to lose something vital. Yet, in truth, surrender is not an act of weakness, but of wisdom. It is the recognition that we were never meant to shoulder the weight of the world, that there are forces at work beyond our understanding, and that true strength lies not in clinging, but in yielding. To surrender is not to resign oneself to failure, but to step into the deeper reality of trust. The human heart resists surrender because it craves control. It believes that by holding on to its worries, its plans, and its desires, it can somehow shape the course of the future. It is reluctant to release its grip, fearing that to do so would be to invite disaster. But this is a tragic misconception. Clutching anxiously to our burdens does not ensure security, it only ensures exhaustion. The tighter we hold, the heavier they become. Fear is the great enemy of surrender. It whispers lies that keep the soul in bondage, convincing it that to let go is to be reckless, that to entrust the unknown to another is to court disaster. But fear is a poor guide. It narrows vision, distorts truth, and locks the heart in a prison of its own making. A life governed by fear is a life spent in endless tension, caught between the desire for peace and the unwillingness to release control. There is a paradox in surrender that the fearful heart struggles to grasp. The paradox is this: the very thing we fear losing pieces only found when we stop grasping for it. The soul that clenches its fists in an attempt to hold on to security finds only anxiety, while the soul that opens its hands in trust finds itself flooded with a peace that surpasses understanding. This is the great mystery of surrender. It is not the absence of action, but the absence of self-reliance. It is the quiet confidence that rests not in one's own ability to navigate life, but in the assurance that life is held in hands far greater than our own. Surrender does not mean passivity. It does not mean abandoning effort or ceasing to care. It means doing what is within our power and then releasing the outcome. It means recognizing that while we may plant and water, we do not control the growth. It means stepping forward in faith, not because we have full knowledge of what lies ahead, but because we trust the one who does. This kind of surrender is not foolishness. It is the highest form of wisdom. It is the recognition that no amount of anxiety will change the future. No amount of striving will rewrite destiny, and no amount of control will make us masters of the unknown. The soul that surrenders is a soul that breathes freely, no longer bound by the relentless need to orchestrate every detail. It moves with grace and confidence. It does not live in constant turmoil, wondering if it has done enough, if it has thought through every possible outcome, if it has calculated every risk. It understands that to surrender is not to stop moving forward, but to move forward without the crushing burden of self-sufficiency. Surrender is not a one-time decision, but a daily practice. Each morning, the heart must choose again to release its fears, its doubts, its tightly held expectations. Each moment presents an opportunity to loosen the grip, to step out of the relentless cycle of worry, and to lean into trust. And with each act of surrender, the soul finds itself growing lighter, stronger, freer. The refusal to surrender leads only to weariness. It is like a man carrying a heavy load on his back, refusing to set it down even when his legs tremble beneath him. He insists that if he does not carry it himself, it will surely be lost. But what he does not see is that help is offered, that he was never meant to bear it alone. But the moment he chooses to release it, he will not be left empty-handed, but will find his strength renewed. To surrender is to rest, not in apathy, but in assurance. It is to trust that there is a wisdom greater than our own, a plan more perfect than our own, a hand more capable than our own. It is to acknowledge that while we see only a fragment, the whole is known, and it is in that knowledge note, our own striving, that true peace is found. Faith is not a passive wish, nor is it an empty hope in the absence of reason. It is an active trust, a confidence placed not in our own abilities, but in something far greater. It is the antidote to the poison of worry, the remedy for a restless mind burdened by the weight of uncertainty. Where worry drains, faith restores. Where anxiety binds, faith sets free. Faith does not deny reality, but it sees reality through a different lens, one that is not clouded by fear, but illuminated by trust. The nature of worry is such that it demands complete understanding before it allows rest. It insists that every possible outcome must be known, every variable accounted for, every danger neutralized before the mind can be at peace. But such knowledge is not given to man. The future is a sealed door, its contents hidden from even the wisest among us. Faith steps in where knowledge falls short. It does not require full visibility to take the next step. It does not wait for the storm to pass before it walks forward. Faith is the conviction that even when the path is unclear, it is not unknown to the one who leads us. The difference between worry and faith is the difference between control and surrender. Worry clings, grasping at certainty that it can never attain. Faith releases, trusting that even in uncertainty there is guidance, provision, and purpose. A worried heart is like a clenched fist, grasping at the air, trying to hold on to something that continually slips through its fingers. A heart of faith is like an open hand, not empty, but ready to receive what is given. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be ruled by it. Fear may whisper doubts, may urge retreat, may paint worst-case scenarios in vivid color. But faith is the quiet voice that says, "Keep walking." It does not demand that all risks be eliminated before it moves forward. It does not require a map with every turn clearly marked. Faith steps forward even when the road ahead is hidden in shadows, not because it is reckless, but because it knows that it does not walk alone. Worry is a thief. It robs the present of its joy, filling each moment with anxiety over what has not yet happened. It distracts, paralyzes, and blinds the heart to the goodness that still exists even in difficult seasons. Faith, on the other hand, restores vision. It shifts focus from the unknown to the known, from what is uncertain to what is unchanging. Worry asks, "What if everything goes wrong?" Faith answers, "Even if it does, I will not be abandoned." The power of faith is not found in its ability to change circumstances, but in its ability to change perspective. It does not always remove hardship, but it strengthens the heart to endure it. It does not always provide immediate answers, but it grants peace even in the midst of unanswered questions. Faith is not blind optimism. It is a deep-rooted assurance that the unknown is not chaos, but part of a greater design. A mind ruled by worry is restless, always running through possibilities, always searching for solutions, always striving for control. A mind ruled by faith is steady, anchored in something beyond itself. It is not tossed by every new fear or shaken by every uncertainty. It is rooted in trust, and that trust allows it to stand firm even when the winds of life are strong. Faith does not exempt one from difficulties, but it transforms how difficulties are faced. It does not promise that storms will never come, but it assures that when they do, they will not be faced alone. It does not guarantee that every outcome will align with personal desires, but it teaches that there is a purpose beyond what is immediately seen. Faith accepts that not every question will be answered in the moment, but that in time, all things will be made clear. The strength of faith is not in its ability to demand outcomes, but in its willingness to trust despite them. It does not dictate terms to the future, it rests in the assurance that the future is already held. It does not insist upon understanding before believing, it believes first, and understands in time. Worry insists on proof before it finds peace. Faith finds peace first, knowing that proof is not the foundation of trust, but the result of it. Faith is the antidote, not because it erases the unknown, but because it makes the unknown bearable. It removes the crushing weight of self-reliance, replacing it with the quiet confidence that even in uncertainty, there is security. It does not require life to be predictable, nor does it demand immunity from hardship. It simply trusts that whatever comes, it is not without meaning, not without purpose, and not without hope. True freedom is not found in the absence of difficulty, but in the absence of unnecessary burdens. The mind weighed down by worry is never truly free, even if circumstances appear favorable. It is trapped in an endless cycle of doubt, constantly running through possibilities, trying to prepare for every possible failure, setback, or misfortune. This is not freedom, but servitude to fear, to uncertainty, to the relentless demand for control. Trust is the key that breaks these chains. When we place our trust in something greater than ourselves, we are no longer bound by the need to dictate every outcome. Trust does not mean ignorance or neglect. It does not advocate recklessness or thoughtless living. Instead, trust is the ability to release the outcome after doing what is within one's power. It acknowledges that human effort has its limits, that no amount of planning can erase the unknown, and that the weight of the future does not rest upon our shoulders alone. A life of trust is not a life without action. It is a life without excessive anxiety. Worry deceives by making itself seem necessary. It disguises itself as responsibility, as wisdom, as foresight. It convinces the mind that if it does not constantly dwell on potential problems, it is being careless. But worry does not prevent hardship. It only ensures that hardship is experienced twice, once in the imagination and once in reality. Trust, on the other hand, does not ignore difficulties, but approaches them with clarity, unburdened by the frantic and fruitless exercise of excessive concern. The burden of worry is not only emotional, but also physical. A mind that never rests produces a body that is constantly tense, exhausted, and on edge. The weight of stress manifests itself in fatigue, in sleepless nights, in the unshakable feeling of being overwhelmed. Trust offers relief, not by eliminating challenges, but by removing the needless suffering created by the mind's insistence on controlling the uncontrollable. A person who trusts is not free from difficulties, but he is free from the torment that comes with trying to manage them alone. Trust allows a person to be present in the moment. Worry, by its nature, is always focused on what is to come, what might happen, what could go wrong, what needs to be prepared for. It steals attention from the now, preventing the enjoyment of what is already given. The person who trusts is able to embrace the present, not because they are ignorant of the future, but because they know that worrying about the future does not change it. A life lived in trust is a life lived with open hands. The worrier clenches his fists, trying to grasp at security, trying to hold onto control. But clenched fists cannot receive. They are too preoccupied with grasping at what they cannot hold. Trust opens the hands, releases the unnecessary burdens, and makes space to receive peace, joy, and clarity. Trust brings clarity because it removes the distraction of fear. A mind clouded by worry struggles to make sound decisions. It hesitates, overanalyzes, second-guesses every choice. A mind that trusts is free to act with confidence, unburdened by the paralyzing fear of making a mistake. It understands that not every choice must be perfect, that not every step must be free from uncertainty, and that movement is often more valuable than overanalysis. The paradox of freedom is that it is not found in absolute control, but in the willingness to release it. The more one tries to dictate every detail of life, the more imprisoned they become, bound by fear, by anxiety, by the exhausting task of managing the unpredictable. Trust allows a person to move forward without carrying the unnecessary weight of what is beyond their power. It replaces frantic striving with steady steps, replaces fear with assurance, replaces exhaustion with rest. Rest is not merely the absence of activity, but the presence of peace. A person who trusts is able to rest even in motion, knowing that their worth is not determined by their ability to control every outcome. They understand that trust is not an excuse for inaction, but a foundation for wise and confident living. They are able to work diligently without being consumed by stress, to make decisions without being overwhelmed by fear, and to face the unknown without being paralyzed by uncertainty. The person who trusts walks through life with lightness, not because their life is free from struggles, but because they are not carrying unnecessary burdens along the way. Trust removes the weight of constant self-reliance, replacing it with the quiet assurance that they are not alone. It transforms fear into faith, tension into peace, and worry into wisdom. The worrier is always bracing for what might come next. The one who trusts moves forward with strength, knowing that whatever comes, they will not face it alone. Peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of certainty in the midst of them. A restless mind is one that believes peace can only exist when all questions have been answered, all risks have been eliminated, and all uncertainties have been resolved. But life does not grant such assurances. There will always be unknowns, always be difficulties, always be moments that demand trust rather than understanding. Peace does not come from controlling circumstances, it comes from releasing the need to control them. Worry is a thief that disguises itself as preparation. It convinces the mind that dwelling on every possibility is a form of protection, that playing out worst-case scenarios in endless loops is a responsible way to live. But the truth is that worry does not prepare, it paralyzes. It does not equip, it depletes. Peace is found when the mind is no longer enslaved to the exhausting need to anticipate every hardship and is instead free to rest in the knowledge that it does not bear the weight of the future alone. A mind at peace is a mind that knows when to act and when to let go. It does not waste energy fighting battles that do not belong to it, nor does it carry burdens that were never meant to be carried. It is not passive but purposeful, not indifferent but discerning. There is a wisdom in knowing when to move and when to be still, when to prepare and when to trust, when to take responsibility and when to release control. The pursuit of peace often fails because people seek it in the wrong places. They believe it will be found in success and security, in the elimination of struggle. But true peace is not circumstantial, it is internal. It is not dependent on a perfect life, but on a steady heart. The person who seeks peace in external stability will always be restless, for stability is never guaranteed. The one who seeks peace in trust, however, finds it unshaken by life's inevitable storms. The human mind is easily consumed by what it cannot control. It latches onto uncertainties, allowing them to dictate its emotions, its decisions, its well-being. A single problem can overshadow 1,000 blessings if the mind allows it. Peace is the discipline of shifting focus, of refusing to let worry dominate the mind. It is the ability to recognize uncertainty without being ruled by it, to acknowledge challenges without becoming overwhelmed by them. There is a simplicity in peace that worry complicates. Worry twists every situation into a web of what-ifs, turning even the smallest concerns into overwhelming fears. It multiplies problems in the mind, making them seem larger than they truly are. Peace does the opposite. It simplifies. It does not ignore reality, but sees it clearly, without exaggeration, without unnecessary fear. It allows the mind to separate what is within its control from what is not, and to rest in the knowledge that it is not responsible for the entirety of life's outcomes. A peaceful mind is not an empty mind, but a disciplined one. It is not free from thought, but free from excessive thought. It does not dwell endlessly on what cannot be changed, but invests its energy in what truly matters. Peace does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means approaching responsibility with clarity rather than fear. It is the ability to work hard without being consumed by stress, to face challenges without being crippled by anxiety, to navigate the unknown without being controlled by it. The restless mind resists peace because it fears that letting go is the same as giving up. It believes that without constant effort, without endless thinking, something important will be lost. But peace is not passivity, it is wisdom. It does not neglect what is important, but refuses to waste energy on what is not. It understands that trust is not a refusal to act, but a refusal to live in fear. Peace allows joy to flourish. A worried mind is too preoccupied with potential problems to appreciate present blessings. It is too consumed by uncertainty to recognize the beauty of what already exists. Peace clears the space for joy, for gratitude, for the ability to live fully in the moment rather than constantly bracing for what comes next. It transforms life from a series of anxieties into a series of gifts. Each moment, an opportunity to experience the fullness of what is, rather than fearing what might be. The greatest enemy of peace is the illusion that it must be earned. People exhaust themselves in the pursuit of a peace they believe will come once they have done enough, once they have prepared enough, once they have secured every possible outcome. But peace is not a reward, for perfect planning it is a choice. It is not something granted only after every problem has been solved. It is something that can be embraced even in the midst of them. A life of peace is not a life free from storms, but a life in which the storms no longer dictate the state of the heart. It is the ability to walk through difficulties without losing joy, to face the unknown without being consumed by fear, to release control without feeling helpless. It is not found in the perfecting of circumstances, but in the transformation of perspective. It is not the result of a life without hardship, but of a heart that has learned to trust even in the midst of it.